he wasn't in school at all. He had dropped out of school. And basically, he just ran the streets. When he got hold of a little bit of dope, he turned it, flipped it, make him a little bit of money. That's how he survived. He lived with his aunt because his parents, both of his parents, had died. And his aunt ended up taking care of him when he was like 10 or 11. And for the most part, Shorty really was a good kid. First time I met him and started talking to him, I realized just in conversation, he wasn't no idiot. Made a lot of sense. And I could tell that he knew how to read, he knew how to write, all that. I understood that he wasn't illiterate by no means. But he had one problem. Didn't want to go to school, liked hanging out in the streets. Like what he saw the drug dealers with, the bling bling and all of that, he liked that kind of stuff. And so that was the life that he chose. But he was my informant. We had a deal. There were certain times when I probably should have took Shorty to jail that I didn't because he would give me something, information that would lead to an even bigger arrest. But it just so happened after about a year and a half of doing this with Shorty, I asked him one day, I said, Shorty, I said, are you gonna go back to school? And he said, Ms. Norwood, he said, I wanna go back to school. He said, but at this point, he said, I done been out of school so long, he said, I don't know if I can function in the classroom. I ain't used to sitting down having people telling me what to do. So I told him, I said, well, Shorty, I said, why don't you go to the VOTEC? I said, you can go to the VOTEC and get your GED. Then at least you would have finished school and get you a decent job. And he said, okay, you got a point. He went to the VOTEC, signed up for school, get his GED. And his aunt would even take him, he would go out there at night. His aunt would take him out there to the classes so he could get his GED. When he decided to go back to school to get his GED, his aunt brought him this gold necklace with a Superman emblem on it. Y'all know what the Superman emblem looks like? Brought him a real nice gold necklace with the Superman emblem on it. When I saw him, he told me, showed me the necklace. He said, hey, he said, you know, my aunt bought me this, going back to school and everything, so I'm trying to get it together. And I asked him then, I said, well, Shorty, I said, when you finish your GED, I said, what you want to do? You know, where you want to work? He said, you know, he said, since I've been back in school, he said, I kind of like it. He said, I think I want to be a truck driver. I said, why a truck driver? He said, because when I was a little kid, he said, that's what my daddy did. And he said, whenever my daddy would come home, his daddy was an over-the-road truck driver. He said, whenever my daddy would come home, he would always let me go sit in his truck. He said, I would just play around and wonder what it was like to be out there on the road where my daddy was. But he told me, he said, that's what I want to do. So I told him, I said, when you go back to the VOTEC, tell them that's what you want to do so they can put you in those classes because the VOTEC has classes for truck driving. He went and he did that. So he was doing what they call kind of like a dual. By this time, he was about 17 and a half. It had been almost 2 years. He was doing what they call kind of like a dual enrollment program where he was still finishing up his GED, but at the same time, he had started taking the courses to learn how to be a truck driver. Well, one day when he got off of the bus, he had to go to day classes then. He got off of the bus and was going to his aunt's house. He would take a shortcut through some apartments off of Silver Star Road to get to his aunt's house. It just so happened as he was getting off the bus, some guy came up and shot him. Execution style. And y'all know what that means, right? In the back of the head. Execution style, you don't see, you don't look at them. They do it from the back of the head. Okay? Shot him execution style. Now, I was working in patrol that day when the call went out, man shot, gave the name of the apartments. I went to that call. When I got there, by the time I got there, they had already put the yellow tape out. They had called, well, not him, but his office, the PIO office, to come out. They had did all of that. And the deputy that was actually on the scene, taking care of the call, I asked him, I said, hey, anything I can do for you? He said, can you get some statements? He said, because there was a lot of people out here, they saw what happened. So I said, okay, good. I started going around getting statements. I never did look at the body, but I kept working around it. Finally, I looked over at the body, and I realized there was something familiar about it, even though he was on his face. There was something familiar about that body. Finally, I got close enough that I could see. It was short. killed him, caught him. The reason why we caught him, because he took his necklace and he took it right up the street to the pawn shop. When you pawn something, you know what you have to give them? You gotta give him your thumbprint and ID. He gave him his thumbprint and ID. And he sold Shorty's necklace. Got a little bit of money for it. When the detectives called him, and they talked to him, and they asked him, why did you kill him? You know what he said? He said he knew that Shorty sold drugs. And once upon a time, Shorty did. When I first met Shorty, that's what he was doing. He said he knew that he sold drugs. He knew that he would have either money, cash, or some dope on him. And he also knew that Shorty wasn't what you call no punk. Shorty would fight. And he didn't want to have to fight with him. So rather than approach him in his face and try to rob him, he walked up behind him, shot him in the head, took his necklace, kept going. That's why he killed him. Because he wanted to rob him. Shorty was getting his life together, was in school, getting ready to become a truck driver, and this other brother killed him because he thought he probably had some dope or some money on him. And the reason why he thought that was because Shorty had done it in the past. And the reason why I tell you this is because you have to recognize this. Sometimes when you go so far, you can't come back. You can't come back. When you get out there on the streets and you start doing some of the things that you do, selling drugs or whatever, people think that's what you're all about. And even if you clean up your life and you try to go in a different route, you still labeled as that dope dealer. You still labeled as that thug. So the reality of it is, if you never go that route, you ain't got to worry about nobody calling you that later. You ain't got to worry about them thinking that's still what you're doing later on. Y'all ever heard, and I know my mother used to say to me a long time ago, what goes around comes back around. I can tell you this, and the other ministers in here can tell you this, really they get that straight out the Bible. When Jesus said you reap what you sow, that's what it means. Whatever you plant now, if you disrespectful, that's what you're going to get out of life later.
Right.
If you disrespectful to people now, if you disrespectful to your mama, to any other adult, when you get older, if you live to get older, you're going to get the same thing.
Right.
If you're a liar, you're going to be lied to.
Right.
If you're a thief, you're going to have stuff stolen from you. Whatever goes around comes right back around. You're going to reap whatever you've sown in life.
All right.
Even at your young age. Unfortunately, Shorty reaped what he had sown in life. Because he had done some bad things. He had done some terrible things. And the biggest mistake he made was not getting out of the hood. Sometimes when you done did so much, you got to move somewhere else. You got to go somewhere else. You can't stay in the same place. And that was the mistake that he made. So I would say to all of you today, first thing you need to start doing, respect yourself. Respect yourself enough that you're going to respect others, and particularly adults. Because really there's no reason for disrespect, is there?
None whatsoever.
Is there really a reason for it? Do you think adults just got it out for you? Do you think anybody just got it out for you? No, in most cases they don't. It's because of our attitudes. And I know because I've been young and I see all the girls, they sitting there looking like this, huh? But I know, I was 15, 16 years old. I remember it's been about 30 years since I was 15 and 16. But I can remember the attitude I had. I can remember how it was. But nobody really had it out for me. If anything, people wanted to help me. But until I respect myself, it's like Deputy Murray told you about your body being a temple. That's true. I can tell you something else. And this is everything I'm telling you in terms of these cases, they're over with. But as a school school resource officer for West Orange 9th grade center. I had a 15-year-old girl out there, 9th grader, the year that I worked there. I only worked there 1 year. After that, I figured out I did not like working with 9th graders. I had to move on to something else. But the 1 year that I worked out there, I had a young girl, 9th grade girl, who had a boyfriend who was a little bit older. Mother came to me and said, hey, we having a problem because she's sneaking out the window at night. She going out with this guy, you know. We know that she's already in the stuff that she shouldn't be in, but we can't stop her. I told the parents, this is what you need to do. Whether or not they did it, I don't know. But less than a week later, Winter Garden PD came to me, asked me, showed me a picture. Is this one of the students here? I said, yes, it is. Well, we just found her dead.
Wow.
On the side of the road. Body burnt to the point where we cannot recognize her. The only reason they were able to recognize her or assume that it was her at that point, because they hadn't even done DNA at that point, was because her purse and her ID was there on the side of the road also. The person that killed her was that same man she was sneaking out the window for.
Wow.
He killed her and burned her body. And the reason why he did it was because she was telling people that she was pregnant from him. And he didn't want that. He didn't want no baby. And if you ever think that a baby's gonna keep a man, wrong answer. He killed her for it.
Wow.
So keep that in mind. When you sneaking out the window, when you trying to be with some boy, keep that in mind. It ain't working. It ain't working. Respect yourself so that men will respect you. And I can tell you right now, as a woman, I say this as a female, as a woman, I'm married. But if I was a young woman single, a brother who ain't got no job, a brother who ain't going nowhere, he definitely couldn't talk to me. I wouldn't give him the time of day. Because I'm planning on going places.